Everyone thought Lauren Hayes had simply disappeared after a fight with her boyfriend, until detectives uncovered the horrifying truth hidden inside their apartment. For 48 hours, Ethan Cole pretended everything was normal, answering texts, posting online, even speaking calmly to friends, while secretly racing to erase what really happened that stormy October night. But one tiny mistake would expose a chilling cover-up that shocked an entire town, and revealed the terrifying reality behind their seemingly perfect relationship. The rain had been falling over the small coastal town of Briar Glen, Oregon, for nearly 3 straight days when 26-year-old Lauren Hayes stopped answering her phone. Friends assumed she needed space. Her co-workers believed she had taken a sick day. But inside a quiet apartment tucked behind a row of cedar trees, something far darker had already happened. Lauren had always been known as the dependable one, organized, calm under pressure, and fiercely protective of the people she loved. She worked as a graphic designer for a local advertising company and spent weekends photographing old diners, abandoned highways, and fog-covered beaches along the Pacific coast. To outsiders, her relationship with 30-year-old Ethan Cole looked stable, even affectionate. They had been together for nearly 2 years, sharing movie nights, road trips, and carefully curated photos online that made them appear inseparable. But behind closed doors, their relationship had been slowly cracking apart for months. Friends later recalled subtle warning signs. Lauren had become quieter. She cancelled plans more often. During dinners with friends, Ethan sometimes answered questions for her before she could speak. If she laughed too long at another person's joke, his expression would darken for just a second before returning to normal. Lauren dismissed concerns whenever people asked if everything was okay. She insisted they were simply stressed about finances and future plans. Yet privately, she had begun documenting arguments in a hidden journal stored inside an old camera bag. The entries described emotional pressure, controlling behavior, and Ethan's growing obsession with knowing where she was at all times. Still, Lauren believed things could improve. She hoped time would calm the tension building between them. On a cold Thursday evening in late October, neighbors reported hearing a loud argument echoing through the apartment walls shortly after 9 p.m. No one called authorities because arguments between couples were sadly common in the complex. Around midnight, security cameras from a nearby convenience store captured Ethan entering alone. He bought cleaning supplies, bottled water, and heavy-duty trash bags while appearing strangely calm. The cashier later remembered him because he made awkward small talk about the weather while avoiding eye contact. By the next morning, Lauren's phone had gone silent. Instead of reporting her missing, Ethan spent the next several hours constructing a carefully planned version of events. He told Lauren's co-workers she was taking a personal trip to clear her mind. He texted her friends from her phone, claiming she needed a break from social media. He even posted an old beach photo to her account with a vague caption about finding peace. At first glance, everything looked believable. But the messages felt strangely emotionless to the people who knew Lauren best. The wording sounded stiff, almost rehearsed, lacking the warmth and humor she always used. Her closest friend, Melissa Turner, immediately sensed something was wrong. Melissa drove to the apartment late Friday afternoon after repeated calls went unanswered. Ethan opened the door wearing wrinkled clothes and forcing an exhausted smile. He claimed Lauren had left after a heated argument and needed time alone. But Melissa noticed details that unsettled her. Lauren's beloved camera was still sitting on the kitchen counter. Her car remained parked outside. Most disturbing of all, Lauren never went anywhere without her dog, Rosie, who was anxiously pacing inside the apartment. Ethan insisted Lauren planned to return soon, but Melissa left with a growing sense of dread she could not explain. Inside the apartment, Ethan's panic was quietly growing. For nearly 48 hours, he attempted to erase every trace of what had occurred. He scrubbed surfaces repeatedly, washed blankets late into the night, and moved furniture in ways neighbors later described as unusual. Security footage from the apartment parking area showed him carrying multiple trash bags to a dumpster behind a closed grocery store several miles away. During this time, he continued sending messages from Lauren's phone to maintain the illusion she was alive and willingly absent. But stress was beginning to break through his carefully controlled appearance. A gas station employee remembered him stopping twice within 1 hour, appearing pale and visibly shaken while buying energy drinks and disposable gloves. Meanwhile, Lauren's family in Seattle became alarmed after she missed her younger sister's birthday call, something she had never forgotten before. Her mother repeatedly tried contacting Ethan, whose explanations became increasingly inconsistent. First he claimed Lauren left Thursday night. Later he said Friday morning. Then he suggested she may have gone to stay with a friend, though he could not say which friend. Each version created more confusion. By Saturday evening, Lauren's family officially reported her missing. Detectives from Briar Glen Police Department arrived at the apartment early Sunday morning. Ethan welcomed them inside with surprising confidence, repeating his story calmly while insisting Lauren simply needed distance after relationship problems. At first, there was little obvious evidence of a crime. The apartment appeared clean, almost too clean. Investigators quickly noticed the overwhelming smell of bleach lingering in the hallway and living room. One detective later described the scene as sterile in a way normal homes never are. Subtle signs began standing out immediately. A section of carpet near the couch looked recently scrubbed. Several framed photos had been removed from shelves, leaving pale dust outlines behind. Most suspicious of all, Lauren's wallet, identification, and medications remained untouched in the bedroom. As investigators continued questioning Ethan, his timeline started collapsing under pressure. Surveillance footage contradicted several of his statements. Digital analysts discovered Lauren's phone activity after Thursday night originated entirely from inside the apartment. Detectives also learned Ethan had called out of work unexpectedly for 2 days despite previously claiming he spent Friday at his job. The deeper authorities looked, the more disturbing the picture became. What initially appeared to be a missing person case was rapidly turning into something far more chilling. Late Sunday night, investigators searched a wooded area outside town after tracking surveillance footage from Ethan's vehicle. Rain poured heavily as officers combed through muddy ground illuminated by flashlights and emergency vehicle beams cutting through the darkness. Several miles from Briar Glen, investigators discovered evidence hidden beneath dense brush near an abandoned service road. The discovery transformed the entire investigation instantly. News spread through the quiet community overnight, leaving residents stunned that such darkness could exist behind the image of an ordinary young couple. And while the town struggled to process the horror unfolding before them, detectives began uncovering the disturbing truth about what had really happened inside that apartment during those missing 48 hours. A truth far more calculated, emotional, and terrifying than anyone first imagined. By Monday morning, the disappearance of Lauren Hayes had become the only thing people in Briar Glen could talk about. News vans lined the streets outside the apartment complex, while neighbors gathered behind police tape whispering theories to one another. Many struggled to believe the smiling couple they had seen walking their dog along the waterfront could now be connected to such a disturbing investigation. Detectives, however, were no longer treating the situation as a missing persons case. Every hour uncovered new contradictions, new evidence, and new pieces of a carefully constructed cover-up that was beginning to unravel under intense scrutiny. Inside the police department, investigators worked through the night reviewing surveillance footage gathered from stores, traffic cameras, parking lots, and nearby businesses. What they discovered painted a timeline far different from the version Ethan Cole had repeatedly described. Cameras showed Ethan leaving the apartment complex multiple times during the early morning hours after Lauren was last seen alive. One clip captured him driving toward the industrial outskirts of town just before dawn. Another showed him stopping near a self-service car wash where he spent nearly 40 minutes cleaning the interior of his vehicle despite heavy rain already pouring outside. Employees later told investigators he appeared unusually nervous, repeatedly checking his phone and glancing around the area, as if afraid someone might recognize him. Detectives also began examining the apartment in greater detail using advanced forensic techniques. Although Ethan had attempted to clean the scene thoroughly, traces of evidence remained hidden beneath the surface. Specialized testing revealed signs of a violent struggle in the living room and hallway. Tiny droplets invisible to the naked eye were discovered beneath floor molding and inside fabric seams of the couch cushions. Investigators found broken fragments from a ceramic lamp scattered underneath furniture, suggesting an intense confrontation had occurred. What disturbed detectives most was the clear indication that someone had spent significant time attempting to erase what happened rather than immediately seeking help or contacting emergency services. As the investigation intensified, Lauren's friends came forward with information they had previously kept private. Melissa Turner told detectives about conversations Lauren had shared during the final weeks of her relationship with Ethan. According to Melissa, Lauren had recently admitted she was considering ending the relationship permanently and moving to Seattle to be closer to family. She described Ethan becoming increasingly possessive whenever she discussed independence or future plans that did not involve him. Lauren had reportedly begun saving money secretly and searching for apartments online. Detectives later recovered deleted searches from her laptop confirming those plans. To investigators, the discovery established a possible motive that gave chilling context to the escalating tension inside the apartment. Meanwhile, Ethan attempted to maintain the appearance of a grieving boyfriend overwhelmed by circumstances spiraling beyond his control. During interviews, he spoke softly, sometimes appearing emotional while describing Lauren as the love of his life. Yet detectives noticed something unsettling about his behavior. His reactions often seemed delayed, as though carefully calculated rather than genuine. When asked direct questions about the timeline, his breathing would quicken and his hands trembled slightly before he responded. Experienced investigators recognized the pattern immediately: a person trying desperately to remain composed while managing a growing web of deception. On Tuesday afternoon, authorities executed a second search warrant on Ethan's vehicle. What they uncovered inside transformed the investigation completely. Deep within the trunk lining, forensic teams discovered additional hidden traces connecting the vehicle to the crime scene. Soil samples, damaged fibers, and partially clean stains suggested the car had been used during the crucial hours investigators were focused on. Even more alarming, detectives recovered security footage from a remote gas station showing Ethan arriving shortly before sunrise on Friday morning with mud covering the lower half of his clothes. In the footage, he could be seen purchasing bleach, air fresheners, and extra fuel while appearing visibly exhausted. Investigators believed the footage captured him in the middle of his frantic effort to conceal evidence before Lauren's absence drew attention. As pressure mounted, Ethan's carefully controlled story began cracking apart publicly. Friends who initially defended him started distancing themselves after learning details investigators uncovered. Co-workers described him arriving at work weeks earlier with unexplained bruises on his hands after arguments with Lauren. One neighbor reported hearing what sounded like furniture crashing against walls the night Lauren vanished, followed by sudden silence that felt deeply unsettling. Another resident remembered seeing Ethan carrying large plastic containers down the apartment stairs around 3 a.m., avoiding eye contact and moving quickly toward his car. The emotional toll on Lauren's family became devastating. Her parents traveled daily between hotels, police interviews, and media briefings while clinging to hope that answers would come soon. Her younger sister, Emma, later described the unbearable feeling of watching strangers discuss Lauren's life on television, while knowing the person they loved had likely spent her final moments terrified and alone. Detectives worked carefully with the family, shielding them from the most disturbing details while continuing to build a case strong enough to survive in court. Behind closed doors, investigators reconstructed the final hours before Lauren disappeared. Evidence suggested the couple's argument may have started over Lauren's decision to leave the relationship permanently. Detectives believed the confrontation escalated rapidly inside the apartment, turning chaotic and destructive within minutes. Objects were overturned. Furniture shifted violently across the room. At some point during the struggle, investigators believed Ethan realized the situation had crossed a line he could never undo. Instead of contacting emergency services, panic appears to have driven him toward a different decision, one centered entirely on self-preservation. For nearly 48 hours afterward, investigators believed Ethan operated in survival mode, focusing less on grief and more on avoiding consequences. He searched online for cleaning methods, studied remote locations outside town, and repeatedly monitored news coverage to see whether anyone suspected him. Digital analysts later uncovered deleted internet searches connected to forensic evidence, missing persons investigations, and phone tracking technology. To detectives, the searches revealed a person desperately attempting to stay ahead of the investigation rather than someone searching for a missing loved one. Late Tuesday evening, investigators brought Ethan in for another lengthy interview. This time, the atmosphere inside the interrogation room felt entirely different. Detectives entered carrying folders packed with surveillance images, forensic reports, phone records, and witness statements. For the first time since Lauren vanished, Ethan no longer controlled the narrative. The walls around his story were collapsing piece by piece. And as the hours passed, detectives moved closer to uncovering exactly what happened during those horrifying 48 hours, including the shocking mistake Ethan made that investigators would later call the turning point of the entire case. The interrogation room inside Briar Glen Police Department felt cold and airless as Ethan Cole sat beneath the dim fluorescent lights late Tuesday night. A paper cup of untouched coffee rested beside him, while detectives quietly arranged photographs and evidence folders across the metal table. For nearly 2 days, Ethan had managed to maintain fragments of control over the investigation through carefully rehearsed explanations and calculated calmness. But now, surrounded by mounting evidence, investigators could sense the confidence draining from him minute by minute. The composed boyfriend, who once insisted Lauren Hayes had simply needed space, was beginning to look like a man trapped inside a collapsing story. Detectives started slowly, walking Ethan through the timeline one final time. At first he repeated familiar claims. Lauren had left after an emotional argument, she wanted time alone, and he assumed she would eventually return. But investigators immediately confronted him with surveillance footage contradicting those statements. They showed him entering the convenience store shortly after midnight to buy cleaning supplies. They presented traffic camera images placing his vehicle near isolated back roads hours before sunrise. Then came the forensic evidence recovered from the apartment and trunk of his car. Each new detail tightened the pressure inside the room. Ethan's posture stiffened. His answers became shorter. Several times he requested water simply to delay responding. What investigators revealed next changed the entire atmosphere instantly. Digital forensic analysts had recovered fragments of deleted data from Lauren's phone and Ethan's laptop. Among the files was a partially erased voice recording captured accidentally during the couple's final argument. The audio was distorted and incomplete, but detectives could still hear raised voices, objects crashing, and Lauren repeatedly demanding to be left alone. At one point, a loud impact echoed through the recording before everything abruptly stopped. The room fell silent after detectives played the clip. Ethan stared downward, rubbing his hands together rapidly while avoiding eye contact. Investigators then confronted him with the mistake that ultimately destroyed his cover-up. Although Ethan had spent nearly 48 hours cleaning the apartment and attempting to erase evidence, he overlooked a hidden home security device attached near a bookshelf in the living room. The small camera belonged to Lauren, who had secretly installed it weeks earlier, after confiding to friends that arguments with Ethan were becoming unpredictable and emotionally frightening. The device automatically uploaded short motion-activated clips to cloud storage. Ethan never found it during his desperate cleanup. The recovered footage did not clearly show every moment of the confrontation, but investigators said it documented enough to dismantle Ethan's entire version of events. The recording captured a heated argument escalating rapidly inside the apartment late Thursday night. Lauren could be seen attempting to leave while Ethan blocked the doorway repeatedly. Furniture was knocked over during the struggle. The final moments of the clip showed chaos erupting just before the camera lost its angle after being jarred violently. Though incomplete, the footage established that Lauren never willingly walked away from the apartment, as Ethan had claimed from the beginning. As detectives laid out the evidence piece by piece, Ethan's emotional control finally began breaking apart. His breathing became uneven. He pressed his palms against his forehead and stared silently at the table for long stretches. Investigators noticed subtle changes in his behavior that often occur when suspects realize the truth can no longer be hidden. He stopped denying certain details outright. Instead, he began shifting language carefully, suggesting the situation had been an accident, and insisting things had gotten out of control. Detectives remained patient, allowing silence to pressure him further. Hours into the interrogation, Ethan finally admitted the argument had escalated far beyond what he originally described. According to investigators, he claimed Lauren had threatened to leave him permanently that night and intended to expose private details about their relationship to friends and family. He described feeling overwhelmed, angry, and terrified of losing control over the life they had built together. Detectives later said his statements revealed a disturbing fixation on ownership and fear of abandonment rather than genuine remorse. Even while discussing Lauren's final moments, much of his focus remained on how the situation would affect his own future. Investigators believed panic consumed Ethan immediately afterward. Rather than contacting emergency responders or seeking help, he allegedly spent the next several hours attempting to construct a plan. Detectives uncovered evidence showing he searched online for cleaning techniques, rural disposal locations, and methods of disabling phone tracking. He moved through Briar Glen under cover of darkness, trying desperately to erase traces of what had occurred. Surveillance footage from multiple locations showed him purchasing supplies, discarding items, and repeatedly driving isolated roads outside town while rainstorms helped conceal movement. The psychological strain of maintaining the deception for nearly 48 hours appeared to unravel him completely. Detectives later described how Ethan barely slept during that period, surviving on caffeine and adrenaline while constantly monitoring Lauren's phone for incoming messages. He responded to friends pretending to be her, attempted to imitate her writing style online, and staged social media activity to create the illusion she was still alive. Yet every action only deepened the evidence trail investigators would later follow. In trying to hide the truth, he unintentionally documented his own collapse. Outside the police station, media attention intensified as rumors spread through Briar Glen that a major break had occurred in the case. Lauren's family waited anxiously in a private conference room nearby while detectives prepared formal charges. Her mother reportedly broke down after investigators confirmed they had finally uncovered the truth surrounding Lauren's disappearance. Friends gathered at candlelight vigils along the waterfront, leaving photographs, flowers, and handwritten notes beneath a growing memorial illuminated by flickering candles and cold ocean wind. In the months that followed, the case of Lauren Hayes would leave a permanent scar on Briar Glen. Community members questioned how warning signs had gone unnoticed for so long. Friends replayed old conversations searching for clues they wished they had recognized sooner. Detectives later stated the case served as a haunting reminder that some of the darkest situations are often hidden behind relationships that appear perfectly normal from the outside. And long after the headlines faded, Lauren's story continued echoing through the town, not only as a true crime investigation, but as a heartbreaking reminder of how quickly fear, control, and desperation can transform an ordinary night into irreversible tragedy.